we got to do something. We have to do something. I mean, what do we do? Because nobody's running 100%. There's absolutely nobody that can stand back and point at you or point at me. It's because nobody's running 100. We're all doing the best we can, and we grew up a certain way, and it was introduced to us a certain way. But to be able to cut it back, say, okay, everybody's going to be able to do what they like to do, but we're just going to be able to do it just one time a day. It's not going to be all day long. Maybe one time a day and only 5 days a week.
Welcome to Care More, Be Better, a podcast for people like you who care about the social impact of conscious companies and everyday heroes. Hear inspiring stories from those who put people and planet before profit and personal gain. You'll learn how you can make a difference, vote with your dollars, and get involved today. Here's your host, Karina Belizzi.
Hello, fellow do-gooders and friends. I'm your host, Karina Belizzi. In our continuing discussion on topics of sustainable living and health, I'm thrilled to be joined today by Chef Babette. Her transformation story is the stuff of legends. It's through her commitment to motivating people around her to give great, healthy, plant-based foods a try that she's making a big difference in the lives of so many every day. So I really am just inviting you today on this journey to think a little bit outside of the box of what your daily consumption is like. Now, Chef Babette has culminated a massive social media following. She owns and runs the very first vegan restaurant in Inglewood, California called Stuff I Eat, and has been featured in all kinds of notable media. She is a fearless powerhouse who even went up against Starbucks for upcharging for vegan items, something that just still drives me batty. Chef Babette, welcome to the show.
You're so adorable. Thank you. That still drives you batty.
It does. And I mean, the same thing at all of the coffee shops. Every single one seems to do it.
We could do so much better. And it shouldn't have to be such a fight all the time.
Now, I understand that you came to a plant-based vegan lifestyle in your 40s for your health specifically, not as an ethical vegan, not for climate, but for you. Yeah. I'd love for you to just tell that story. What motivated you to get there?
I'm glad you're asking me that. My husband, I met Rondo in 1990. In the spring of 1990. Now, I was singing, girl. I had been, to Japan, thinking that was going to be my thing, singing. And when I met him, the very first date was pretty wild to me. He takes me up to Griffith Park to do this run. He runs the whole thing backwards. And then this isn't
the first time I've heard that, but I still, I think he was doing it to impress you.
And up and up. And I'm like, so how many more inclines, I'm barely walking this thing. And then he takes me to his place and he prepares what I consider my very first vegan meal because he had tofu to replace any animal flesh. And he really knew how to make that tofu. It was already pressed. It was nice and tastes like chicken. I kept calling it chicken. And I was like, it has some more chicken. And it was a meal that did not affect me like I was normally affected after I ate. Like I had a rough time digesting food. But of course, I drank Kool-Aid with the meal. I mean, I was a hot mess coming up. My mother put sugar in everything. So right then and there, everything was acidic. It was just bad combinations. I always had acid reflux. I was going to be one of these people that I need to medicate myself every time I eat, which is nuts. We should not have to do that. We're the only species that has to medicate after we eat because we don't know how to eat. So it's crazy. And this meal was so incredible. And then he gave me 2 books. But that's the lick right there. Understanding knowledge is power. Oh, my God. I'm so glad he gave me the books. One book was Fit for Life. And you know, Fit for Life, they're always talking to you that volume 1, it's all about food, proper food combining. Now, they're not telling you to be a vegan. They're just saying if you're going to eat meat, you should eat it with veggies. If you're going to eat potatoes, you should eat those with veggies. You should never eat the meat and the potatoes. They're just teaching you how to combine food. But then volume 2 started talking about the crap and the deodorant and the toothpaste and all that kind of stuff. And then the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. Once I read that book, I was like, oh my gosh, that is why I've been so messed up all my life. Eczema, asthma. I was really, really a wipeout coming up. And even as a young woman, every 30 days I'd get eczema in my face. Lips swollen, eyes swollen, the whole 9 yards, everything. I had a doctor that just gave me a cortisone cream every month. Just keep putting it on your face. Come on now. So once I had that meal and got that knowledge, eating became much friendlier. It had gotten to a point where I was almost scared to eat. I was miserable every time I ate. And this thing just, and so of course I wasn't thinking about not one animal on the planet. No, I didn't even know I needed to think about an animal. I just know that he gave me a meal that didn't make me sick. But I'm gonna tell you what really got me going. Understanding my oneness with this whole thing, with all of it. Understanding that if I hurt the cow, I'm getting ready to hurt me as well. It's just the way it is. And that is what is happening right now. Once I began to understand my connection and focusing on that oneness, then I began to include the whole as a part of me.
Yeah, I think the way that we have grown accustomed to eating food, and I say grown accustomed because this is not how we evolved.
No, it's not.
We evolved as a hunter-gatherer society that migrated with often the herding animals that would migrate. We'd plan our seasonal food based on what was available around us.
Yes.
And meat was something of a condiment or of something that could get us through the winter months when there wasn't as much vegetables or fruits or things like that around. And so the fact that we've had to get to a point where we need to understand things like food combining or have to sit there and take a pill in order to digest a meal without discomfort is really disheartening.
It is.
So, you know, we get to a place now where we understand that the concentrated animal feeding lots, they are creating all sorts of problems for us, not only from a health perspective, but also from an environmental perspective.
Yes.
Runoff into our lakes, rivers, and streams is affecting the health of our oceans. And we also have the negative side effect of all the methane produced through these concentrated animal feeding lots.
There you go.
So there's better ways to do this stuff. And we know the better ways to do this stuff, but it's not going to come without some effort on the part of people like us to say, okay, well, I'm either going to reduce my consumption of these types of foods, or I'm going to be so militant about my source that I'm going to be not a part of that problem. I'll go to the regenerative organic farming, foods that are available, or maybe I'll even return to hunting and get venison now and then or something to that effect. It's like either we do that or we stay in this sick state. And it can be either from a physical sick state because we aren't doing well with the food that we're eating.
Or both.
Or emotionally too, because we are trying to essentially look the other way, like, oh, if I don't see it, then it's not happening. Right.
But then the powers that be, the people that have the biggest voices are not really talking about everything that is creating the problem. They're not educating. And so you have an ignorant society. What is that ignorant society going to do if they don't have the info? They can't do anything. And that is why we speak. whenever we can. We have to get the truth out, because as far as people are so ignorant right now about, oh my, seriously, it's incredible. And to the point that this may be terrible. I have girlfriends and we all go, man, I'm glad I'm in my 70s.
It is still hard for me to believe, Babette, that you are in your 70s. I mean, you are youthful, vivacious, something it might have to do with the plant-based eating, perhaps
It
just a little
has
bit.
so much to do with the plant-based eating, my dear. It has so much. Meeting Rondo, when I met Rondo, getting me to start moving, working out. I was about to turn 40. This was the spring. He was going to turn 42 in September. I was going to turn 40 in December. And that's how we hooked up. And because of that movement and that first meal, that is what made the difference. Now, I'm sure genetics has some bit to play on it. My mother was pretty good, even though she was a hot mess at 93. Her face never did crease up a lot and that sort of thing. And I'm sure melanin has a lot to do with it. But seriously, she was not on the journey that I'm on. She made me want to do something different because of her lifestyle. But girl, I'm telling you, right now, the ignorance is just, I posted something the other day and I was at a vegan event, Dr. Bobby Price. I don't know if you know him. I was at his event and I made a comment to somebody that said something about using the term vegan, and that I turned around and said, yeah, well, I'm vegan, I sell vegan, and I said something about make sure you have something live on your plate. I eat a salad, just eat a salad. Yeah, everything else is cooked, but eat a salad. Do you know how many people post it? Once you pick that apple, it's dead. They're not making the connection. They're not, I don't know how did we stop making the connection. Food nutrients. The nutrients represent the life in the apple. No, the apple's not going to get up and jog. But if you plant that seed in that apple, you're going to get life. The nutrients from the apple, whatever vitamins you get from the apple, whatever, I mean, that is the life represented in that apple. And they all say, I don't care what you pick, anything you pick is dead. You're getting
I think there's another theoretical discussion there, right? Because one of the ways that you could define something that's living is that it's in a state of change. And even in the process of decomposition, guess what's live in that apple? It's all the microbes, right?
Well, thank you, sweetheart. I wish I had you to post some of that while I was trying to have a fit with these people. But I just wanted them to understand the connection that you eat not just because you're hungry. You also eat for the nutrition that you're getting from the food that you eat. So you don't want to alter it. Everything that you ingest, you don't want it altered. Can I have anything with? And so it was something else. It was by their logic,
though, anything that you eat would be dead unless you happen to eat it while it was still squirming.
And because yes, thank you. Because I'm saying, well, you guys say you get protein from a dead animal. That's what you say. And now you're telling me the apple's dead because I picked it.
So, I mean, I know that we each have our perspectives. I remain an omnivore, even though I don't eat as much meat as I once did. I do work really hard to ensure that I'm getting it from a responsible space. And I no longer eat farmed fish as one, for example. And my reason for not doing that is because there are concentrated animal feeding operations in the fish farming space as well. The animal meats that I procure, I'm buying from regenerative organic farms, and I have to buy it, from out of state because there's none nearby where I am. It ships to me frozen. And then, I buy meat basically twice a year now. And so that enables me to make meat meals for my family periodically.
Sweetheart. You had knowledge.
And it's hard to come by. People, they think that if they go to the grocery store and buy something there, that it was cattle grazing in a field, and that the chicken was free range. And that meant that it was like you would picture if you read Charlotte's Web on one of these small crop farmers, right? It's not like that anymore.
It's not. Do you know what I used to believe? Everything in that supermarket, I used to believe everything in that supermarket was okay for me to eat because my government had already checked it out, given the 411, and we're good to go. That's what I truly believed. And you're saying that right now. There's so many of us that still believe the same thing.
Well, and there's a sad reality too that I've just started to learn about recently. I do plan to cover this at some point soon on the podcast, but haven't been able to complete my research on it yet. And that is that in certain states, that the child labor laws are being loosened even more, so that 14-year-olds are working at meatpacking plants and like they're working in these conditions, preparing animals for our consumption.
Sometimes
it's just, we don't think about the impact that the way we're procuring and cooking food really has on our society as a whole. We don't think about it. And, what we're trying to do with our current operations is drive the cost down, because this has gotten to the space where it's like meat is a commodity, right?
Yes.
And so because of that, then what are we doing? We have farm subsidized corn, farm subsidized soybeans. These are all GMO crops. The GMO crops are, have inborn chemical varietals that are not necessarily as healthy for us, that are then used to feed our animals. And it's not like we are what we eat anymore. We are what our food ate too. So that's a lot of corn and a lot of soy and a lot of GMOs.
And they're feeding it to the fish, the chicken, the cows, the pigs. Everybody gets
isn't that amazing?
It is incredible.
Yeah. So every step along the way, here we are, we're subsidizing the growth of basically two crops, corn and soy, that end up in everything we eat, and then in all the processed food that we're marketing on the shelves. And then we wonder, why are we getting less healthy? Why are people getting fatter? Oh, well, the antibiotics that we pump into our cattle, they also affect our microbiome. And then our microbiome can't digest the foods that we're eating that are stuffed full of soy and corn. And it's gotten to the point where it's comical. Like, this is actually something that we should laugh at, but it's too terrifying to laugh at.
It really is terrifying. And you know what, though? It's right there available for everybody to see on YouTube. All you got to do, they have documentary after documentary after documentary, that all this information that you just shared is right there. You got to look for it. You got to know what you're looking for.
You got to know what you're looking for. And then you have to be willing to wear a skeptic's hat. And I think that is the part that is probably the scariest for people, because as soon as you say, I'm going to be skeptical, I'm going to question it, that means that you actually have to do the work to find out more.
Yeah, you do.
And that is not actually that easy. So, it gets to a point where people are almost more comfortable, it seems, just looking away. And that's what I meant when I said looking the other way when it comes to where your food comes from. Because if you don't have to see it, then you don't have to worry about unseeing it.
True. So true. Wow.
So obviously, going vegan has affected you. And it's affected your lifestyle. It's affected your business. I mean, you have you have your own restaurant called Stuff That I Eat, right?
Because so stuff I eat.
Yeah. So talk to me about this journey of becoming Chef Babette.
Wow. And I was, you're so funny to say it like that, because my mother used to say, you better learn to cook or you're never going to be able to feed your husband. And I used to think to myself, well, he can learn to cook himself and feed himself. I don't have to. But what happened was, once I met Ron and we just kind of started playing around with the food that we ate and making it taste as good as it tasted to us when we ate it the other way. And then I started like a little catering company, and went to Japan to do some singing. And when I was over there, I did a lot of meditating, a lot of cooking, a lot of working out. Did the same thing I'm doing now.
Mhm.
And the group I was with, they were practicing and writing songs and doing all that. And I knew when I got back to the States, it was going to be food for me. And then my husband decided to get involved, and then one thing led to another. And we were on the parking lot of the Agape Spiritual Center for 6 years with a 15-foot hot dog cart that we had built. And we started accumulating block-long lines. So we knew that it was pleasing to the average palate, the food that we were. So we were doing things like tacos, burritos, things that we eat every day. Now, and then we moved into the restaurant, we had to come up with a soul food platter because we were in Inglewood and we didn't have any chicken or fish. So people would come in and be like, you don't have chicken, you don't have fish, you don't have soul food. What you got? And so I chased a lot of people out, bringing them back in to give away tacos. Come back in here. Let me share this taco with you. And sure enough, they would eat the taco and sit down and wind up purchasing a meal. It got to be pretty incredible because people really, really enjoyed the food, and there was no animal products near whatsoever. No refined sugar, no dyes, no preservatives. We kept it organic and fresh. We didn't feed them out of boxes, not a lot of cans, hands-on. And so that's what we still do today. And people are very appreciative.
Well, I love that. And those that are watching or listening to today's episode and who have a Netflix subscription may also have recently viewed a documentary film about twins from Stanford, or twins that participated in a Stanford research project, which put them on.
That one.
Okay, so this is brand new. It
Was
just
it
came
a
out.
group of them? Several twins?
Yeah, several sets of twins, and they took all the twins and they put one of each of them on a vegan diet,
Right.
and then the other of each of them on a healthy, planned omnivore diet, right?
Yeah.
And then they followed them over the course of several weeks. In the first set of weeks, they had to teach them to cook vegan and to eat vegan foods,
Right.
or to cook like healthy omnivore and eat that food, right? And so for that first phase of the study, they supplied 100% of the food that they ate.
Right.
And then they go into a second phase of the study where they teach them to actually procure the food and cook the food that they're going to eat and do it on their own. And then at the conclusion of the study, they met with all these twins. They'd done full body scans to see where their health markers were. What was their weight? Did it move? What was their intramuscular, activity like? Did they put on muscle mass or did they lose muscle mass? And what about their visceral fat? And that was the big one, right? What happened with their visceral fat? And in all of the individuals that were on the plant-based diet, they had a more significant change in their visceral fat.
Did they really?
On the vegan diet. So even though the calorie counts were virtually identical,
Yeah.
they had a better health impact on the vegan diet. Carefully architected vegan diets, right? They also didn't lose more muscle mass. And so this is something that I had recently asked you when you came on the Nutrition Without Compromise show, because those watching on YouTube can see Chef Babette has some nice shoulder muscles on her. She has been able to maintain muscle mass into her 70s on a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
And so there's all these people who come at you when you start talking about going plant-based that are fans of an omnivore or meat-based diet. And they'll say, well, how do you get enough protein to maintain muscle mass, especially as you age? Now, we can have a long conversation about this alone, but the reality is that plant-based foods have proteins in them.
Yes.
And when we mention things like soy and rice and beans, these things have protein in them.
Yes.
Getting more protein, you might have to work a little harder to do. You might have to chew more, but the reality being that you are actually likely to have better health outcomes if you do that, even than if you're on an omnivore diet that is healthfully crafted. Now, even the architects of the study said look, if you are getting a wide variety of foods and you're getting your wild fish and you're getting these other nutrients, at the end of the day, you're probably going to have a comparable health outcome.
Mhm.
But the reality for so many is it's challenging to do that. And what I loved about this Netflix show was that they followed the twins into the grocery store. And
Yeah.
it was interesting to see the buying choices they would make on the meats and on the eggs and on the things like that. Because, as you and I both know, if you choose an egg and it has like a pale yellow yolk, it's not as healthy as one with a vibrant orange yolk. And it's harder to get. It's not like you see that on the external package, right?
Right.
It's harder to make choices based on what's purely on the label. So, those individuals were doing things like buying, chicken breasts in a styrofoam package with wrapped in
Were
plastic.
they really?
Yes, because that's how they sell it in the stores. I mean, let's be real
I need you to
here.
tell me just one thing. The two black girls, the twins.
Yeah.
How'd they do? That I out of all of them, I really wanted to know how those sisters did, because they were serious carnivores.
They were serious carnivores. They're South African, right?
Yes.
So they're from South Africa.
Yes.
They were caterers. So they work with food.
Yes.
And the one that was on a plant-based diet was saying things like, oh, I'm not supposed to taste this. How do I even do the job? Because I'm like preparing these foods. And so, her sister who was doing the omnivore diet was teasing her.
Yes.
Of course.
How did they pan out? Just let me know. Did they
So you can watch the show. Maybe I should just say that.
See,
but
now you're gonna make me go back in.
No. Okay. It was actually really good. At the tail end, the vegan individual actually did have better health outcomes.
Okay.
She was the one who started lighter bodied too, though, but the impact of specifically visceral fat was better overall. And I think that what was really that was a really interesting piece, that universally they had better health outcomes. Now, granted, they're going to the store to buy these goods in the tail end of the study, and they're fixing them themselves. So it's all how militant you are, right? It's how focused you are. It's how much you know. It's the type of foods that you're eating. Are you eating a wide enough variety of food to actually feel content and fulfilled? So, I mean, I think overall the impact was really, really interesting.
Cool. I'm gonna have to watch then. I was hoping that you would make me go back and watch, but I was also hoping you would tell me.
Yeah. So here's the documentary. Here's what it was called. The Netflix documentary, You Are What You Eat, a Twin Experiment.
Yeah. It was good though.
It was good. And it was,
good.
it's actually broken into, I think, 4 or 5 episodes. So you don't have to watch it all at once. You can digest it piece by piece. I thought it was also interesting that they had selected a couple of guys who were cheesemakers. And he's going, I can't give up the cheese. How does this work?
It was rough for him, right? The cheese. But cheese is rough for anybody to give up.
Well, and then they interviewed Miyoko Shinner, who was the founder of Miyoko's Creamery, as part of this effort as well. Yeah. And she is a vegan cheesemaker. So, I mean, it's possible to do this living without consuming meat and cheese. And I got to tell you, today, the number of things that are available that make you forget that you would even miss meat is kind of astounding. I went to Natural Products Expo East last September, not this one, but the one before. And there was it was like a little chicken wing, but it wasn't chicken. It was a like tempeh based, soy based, like meat with sauce. And then for the bone, it had a sugar cane piece. So you could eat it and then chew on the sugar cane after if you wanted. And I mean, that was delectable. If I ate like that every day, cool. I'd be far too heavy, right? But the fact that some of these things are meant to be treats, they're not meant to, like, you don't sit down and eat a plate of it. That's part of the problem with America. We sit down and we eat a plate of chicken wings, and then we wonder why our waistband is like getting a little snug, right?
Okay. Yes, so true. But that's interesting. Sugar cane. Oh my gosh, I love it.
There are so many innovative ways to change how we look at food. Yeah. I would like to actually hear from you for a moment, too, about this bridge into your connection with Mercy for Animals, because we did get to feature AJ Albrecht of Mercy for Animals on this podcast. and talk to her about their important work, which is essentially all around trying to improve conditions of animal feeding lots and things like that, and get us to all think about a more plant-centered diet as it stands. But what led you to that moment, and what was that collaboration really like?
Mercy for Animals, it's unbelievable, really and truly. They reached out to Stuff I Eat years ago. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't know who Mercy for Animals was. I had no clue. They really embraced Stuff I Eat and Chef Babette to the point where they pretty much put us on the map.
Oh, that's lovely.
No, that's the honest to God truth. I didn't know who Mercy for Animals was. And just unbelievable, made the first videos with us that got like over 8 million views, and just nobody knew who Chef Babette was, or seriously, it was Mercy for Animals. So as far as I'm concerned, whenever, whatever Mercy for Animals needs from Stuff I Eat or Chef Babette, I'm there. And that is my connection with Mercy.
That is really lovely. I didn't know that.
That's the honest to God truth. Out of nowhere.
One of the things that surprised me, that I didn't know before interviewing AJ Albrecht, was that like they're pushing for things that are kind of no-brainers. Like they want to be able to have pens for the pigs that are big enough so that they can turn around.
Right. At least
while they're nursing their little piglets,
Right.
This has to be through legislation. And this gets back to that whole concept. Like people just think that if it's USDA sealed and government regulated, that means everything's okay. It really doesn't mean that everything's okay.
It does not.
And if an animal doesn't even have the space it needs to get up and turn around.
Because everything is not okay.
No.
Everything is not okay. And the abuse that these animals suffer, it's like it starts with self-love. There's no way, the way I love me, there's absolutely no way I could ever inflict that kind of harm and pain to any other living being. No way. And loving starts with self. So if you don't love you, you don't give a heck about that animal. The way that their methods of handling these animals is heartbreaking. It's horrible. But karmic debt, I mean, we all have to pay it at some point.
Yeah, we really do. So there are people out there that are giving some simple messages that I think everybody here would benefit from hearing us repeat. Okay, I'll give you one. Jonathan Safran Foer, he wrote a book, what was it called? Eating Animals. I think that's what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's also written books on climate change. He also wrote a book, one of my favorite fiction works, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. This has also become a film, right? So he's a fiction author as well as a nonfiction author. And what he's a proponent of as a vegan is simply no animal products before dinner. And so if we are to communicate this broadly through our media channels to say, look, maybe veganism isn't for everybody, or maybe that's too hard for you to consider right now. How about let's just not do any animal products before dinner? And by making that simple change, then we're reducing the amount of dairy that's being consumed. We're reducing the amount of chicken, beef, pork, whatever, fish.
You just said it. We didn't have all of this meat being eaten years ago, and it wasn't a problem.
No, It wasn't a problem.
We're overdoing it. It's not sustainable. We don't have enough land mass. We need our forests. So you're saying it, even the cutback. That's it.
It's a huge contributor.
Because
so
it's never going to stop.
Well, there's always going to be personal preference. And then there will be those people that just say, I just don't even want to. I'm not going to bother. I'm going to do things the way I've been doing them. And that's just a way I'm going to keep going in the track I'm going. And that's not to say that that's bad. I want to be clear with that. I can't judge you for your lifestyle.
No, and judging is not going to get us anywhere.
No, but if that's the case, if you even were to say, you know what, I'm just not going to eat an animal products in one meal a day. And
Right.
then you start discovering new foods that can actually impact your health in a positive way. If you start to consider something like what Dr. William Lee says, who has been on this podcast too, where he encourages us to look at meat as a condiment,
There you
which is more
go.
how the Asian culture
The
really
Asian,
looks at
I was
meat.
just about to say that's how they did it.
Right. You know, like you consider a shish kebab as a part of a meal as opposed to a giant steak on your
We've gotten
plate.
gluttonous, honey. We've gotten gluttonous. And we
Well,
want it at
even if
every
you go to
meal.
eat out today, like I am hard pressed to go out to eat a meal and be able to consume all of it in one sitting.
Right.
We're just simply feeding ourselves too much. And then there's
Yes.
an
Yes.
environmental cost to that too. So if we shrink the amount we eat and we shrink our waistlines, then we are less of an ecological cost too. So I think it's just about being honest.
It is. It is. This is so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. That really is such a good answer to it. Just a cutback. How about that? Just a cutback. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I still love my cheese.
You know who didn't love cheese?
I mean, I still
that is
do.
the hardest thing.
And for me, it's, you know, Parmigiano Reggiano and putting some of that on a marinara and like pasta. It's like, oh, that's so divine, right?
We grew
So,
up with that.
of course, you know, so like, and as an Italian, that was something that was so
Thank
rooted in
you.
culture. And so we can find new ways, though, to replace some of these itches, so to speak. So this is a question I have for you because I have my own
Okay.
answer to it, of course, too. But I think we've kind of led there. I just wanted to know if you had a magic wand to wave, what you would change about our food culture.
If I had a magic wand.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, what a good question, girl. You always coming up.
I want the magic wand. Maybe that's why I'm asking you.
Well, I think what I would, I like what you said. I think I would probably change the fact that we don't eat animals at every sit down. I like that. I love that.
Mm.
I think that is, I think that would help a lot, in other words. So I think I'll steal that from you. And with my magic wand, I'd make that happen. We could only eat
Oh.
animal products one time a day.
So we'll
Yeah.
grant Jonathan Safran Foer's wish for all of us.
There you go.
I love that too.
I
That's
do
one of my
too.
favorites.
I mean, it's brilliant. It'll help. Look at we got to do something. We have to do something. We don't we? I mean, what do we do? You know, because nobody's running 100%. There's absolutely nobody that can stand back and point at you or point at me. It's because nobody's running 100. We're all doing the best we can, you know. And we grew up a certain way, and it was introduced to us a certain way. But to be able to cut it back, say, okay, everybody's going to be able to do what they like to do, but we're just going to be able to do it just one time a day. It's not going to be all day long. Maybe one time a day and only 5 days a week.
Right. Well, I have a couple questions about food to ask you since you have this beautiful restaurant. And since unfortunately it's a bit too far for me to make my way there, I wonder if you would be able to share a couple of meals that you think are really easy to prepare in your own home that people could do plant-based if they wanted to give it a whirl.
Oh, honey, yeah. Okay, check this out. If you ever juice carrots, now I peel the carrots, I make sure they're really clean, and I take the pulp of that carrot, and then all the ingredients that I used to put in my tuna, I put it in the carrot pulp, and I make carrot untuna. It is absolutely delicious. And you can do that in the the comfort of your home.
So are you saying like a tuna salad sandwich type thing with carrot?
You can make salad, but the carrot pulp becomes tuna, like regular tuna salad. But it's made out of carrot pulp. So everything, all your sweet pickle relish, your mayo, little onion, everything you put in your tuna, you're gonna put it now in your carrot pulp. and pow, it is delicious. So I always add apple cider vinegar, a little agave nectar, of course, a little bit of Bragg's. I put some celery seed, some celery seed and caraway seed, and of course, bell pepper, green onion, a little red onion, and mayo. Woo! And you got
So it sounds like you're
carrot and
making a
turnips.
salad topper in a way, like something that could be integrated into any
It's
salad
a
you
salad
make or in a
topper.
sandwich.
It could
Yeah.
be on the side of your salad. It can be a big salad with lettuce and tomato and yes, that's an easy one. What's another really easy one I have there that I love? Make your tacos. Get yourself a wild rice blend or just wild rice.
Mm.
Wild rice and season that bad one up with some Mexican seasoning and some bell pepper and green onion and that kind of stuff. And once you cook that wild rice is a grass. It's not a grain, it's a grass. So you could actually put it in the dehydrator in water and it will open up for you. But you make some tacos out of that wild rice. Ooh, child. That is the best.
Well, because you mentioned your juicer, I also have another solution for the fiber that gets left behind. Because the
Yes.
juice I like to make if I'm juicing, I'll put beet and celery and carrot and
Okay.
sometimes another vegetable or two in there. But
What
if
you do?
I've done multiple in this one juice, right?
Yeah.
Then I can actually use the leavings as the base for a soup stock that I later create.
True.
And so it ends up being like a heartier soup stock
Yes.
because all that fiber is in there. And so
Look
it's a
at
little more
you.
filling. And there's just other ways to use your food scraps beyond just composting them or
haven't done
throwing them
that.
away.
I'm getting ready to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a really delicious way to go. I will say too, when you talk about the tacos that you make and your stuff I eat restaurant, it gets me salivating. So
Yes.
one of the things I do with my boys is I just take taco seasoning with
Uh-huh.
some firm tofu. I almost
Yeah.
said tofu.
No.
And I
Firm
just
tofu.
crumble it
Yeah.
up just like you
That's
would with the
it.
beef stuff and
That's
put the
it.
taco seasonings in. And it is great.
We
They
sell
like
that.
it
We
just as
sell that at
much.
Stuff I Eat. The same thing you're talking about.
So
We
just
have
do
either
tofu tacos with
a
beans,
tofu taco, we have a wild rice taco, or then we have the blend, the tofu and the rice. So you're spot on. Tastes like
Yeah.
regular taco. You don't even know the difference, do you? Once you eat it, once you crumble that tofu up like that and season it.
Right. And got to tell you, hey, if you're on that path, then your visceral fat is going to shrink more than your
Thank you.
omnivore friend over there.
How do
So
your kids like it? They
my
love
kids
it.
love tofu.
They love it.
And
See?
it's been surprising because my husband is such a kind of poo-pooer of that in particular. He's all like tofu, But I just like when they're with me alone was the first time I introduced it. And because like I didn't want him overshadowing their experience, right? And
Yes.
because I did that, because I was like, okay, he's gonna poo-poo it. And then my boys who idolize their dad are gonna be like, oh no, I don't like tofu.
I don't
right?
like it either.
So instead I did it with them solo on a night when their dad was gonna be doing something else, right?
Cool.
And so we had our tofu tacos. And then the next time I prepared it was when their dad's the home too, right? Like, so I did the meat version and the tofu version. And my sons love the tofu version. So they're eating that. And then my husband turns his nose up at it and they're just like, you're crazy. This is good, Dad.
I love it.
Which is like, that's what I want. I want kids that are going to have a broad palate, that are going to be willing to try new things
Good for them.
and that understand that they don't have to go to meat every time they need a meal because of the way that our American perspective has been architected more broadly is that, you need meat to make a meal and we really don't.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, my mother turned around. She was already had a stroke. She turned around. She could barely talk. Don't think I'm never gonna eat another piece of chicken. Yes, ma'am. She loved her chicken. So what can I say?
What can you say? Different strokes for different folks, I guess is what it comes down to, right?
But I loved your one idea. It was the best.
Well, it's not mine. Nodding to Jonathan Safran
Okay,
for
well,
and
we'll
his
give
work.
it to him. It was a
Yeah,
good one.
for sure. Well,
Smart.
thank you so much, Chef Babette,
It's
for joining me
always fun to
today.
hang with you, girl. This was great.
I love having you on. And you were on my other show, Nutrition Without Compromise. We got a little deeper on some other sides of this then. But gosh, it's just been such, I think,
Yeah,
a
this
good
was fun.
conversation. My hope for people is that they can take one pearl of wisdom from today's conversation, integrate it in their lives, and perhaps they've just learned a little bit more about what it takes to eat and live responsibly. Now, I will be sure to include links to everywhere that we can find you, Chef Babette, which is at Chef Babette on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Yeah,
and then
on Facebook is Babette Davis.
Oh, Babette Davis. Okay, great. So I will go ahead and include those direct links on each spot. And I understand you also have a website for the restaurant. Do you want to give that now?
I think it's what is it? I'm terrible. I'm at stuff I eat that I don't. I'm terrible. I don't know.
I have it in my notes, but I'm not looking at it right now.
Give it to him. I'm so bad. I'm just really horrible. But I'm 73. I have an excuse.
You have a great excuse, and I have a really poor excuse because I'm supposed to be 100% ready for this moment. Give me a second. On orlonutrition.com, where I first interviewed you for the Nutrition Without Compromise podcast. I'm going to go ahead and search because I know it's there.
I'm terrible. I can't believe I can't even remember.
Oh, sure. But that website, www.stuffiEat.com. There it is. And there's your beautiful face. And stuffiEat.com is it. Man, you must have a whole team of people working for you.
Yeah, because I never take care of any of that stuff right there. I never even look. I'm terrible. Okay.
Oh, well, I should have had it right here. And that was the one thing I missed.
You got it now, baby, and you gave it to me, so you're good.
That's right. So you can find Chef Babette on Instagram at Chef Babette, also on TikTok. And then on Facebook, it's Babette Davis. The website for her is stuffiEat.com. You can find out more about her restaurant that's all vegan in Inglewood, California, right there. I will be sure to include direct links to all of these with show notes. And really, I'm just going to remind everyone, if you enjoyed today's conversation, and I really hope you did, I hope you'll give us a thumbs up, write a comment, 5-star rating or review. All of those things help more people discover our content. And if you're curious about the conversation I had with AJ Albrecht at Mercy for Animals, you'll also find a link directly with show notes for that as well. Now, I will also say that we can create new great recipes together. I would love to hear from the community about your favorite vegan or plant-based food. So if you want to send those my way, you can send a note to hello@caremorebebetter.com or DM me on social channels, and I'll be sure to share them as well. And I want to close this show by simply thanking you, all of you, and also to the lovely Chef Babette, now and always, for being a part of this pod and this community, because together we really can do so much more. Yeah. We can care more, we can be better, we can even transform our diets and our lives and build the health and the future that we want and deserve. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Care More, Be Better, a podcast for social good. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share with your friends to help us reach more people and spread more social good.